We would be honored if you would join us.
I got a bad feeling about this.
You were the chosen one!
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's a trap!
I don't like Sam. It's coarse, rough, and irritating.
I am your father.
Hey now! Welcome to episode 113 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is a sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. In addition to the BOF podcast, you can find other shows such as... What's going on, Ryan?
One of our newest shows on the Batman Podcast Network is the Sequel Cast 2 podcast. And what they do is they just cover franchise films in multi-episode blocks, which is a kind of cool setup. And of interest to our listeners would be their recent run of episodes covering the Superman franchise from Superman the movie all the way through Superman Returns, which is episodes 45 through 49. And just to sweeten the pot a little bit, I'll be joining them on their upcoming episode on Son of the Mask, which is the second film in the Mask duology, which should be interesting. And another cool thing I've done for the Batman Podcast Network is we actually have a dedicated Twitter page for the Batman Podcast Network right now that I just launched today. And you can find that on Twitter at BatPod Network. And what I'm going to do is just retweet and all of the new episodes from the shows we have on the network. And so it'll be kind of a nice, fun Twitter handle just to go to see what people in the podcast network are up to. So follow that at BatPod Network.
That's awesome. I love it, man.
Yeah.
We're getting some traction there. It's great. Okay, so I'm your host today, Rick Shew. And with this is obviously my co-host, Ryan Haas, who was just talking. And we have from Flickering Myth, BOF contributor, and Star Wars enthusiast, Ricky Church. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, man, because as always, Batman on Film is the authoritative, the definitive, and the dadgum original. I should have had Ricky give us a good Canadian dadgum original. But anyway.
Dadgum original, eh? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There you go. Today's discussion, guys, is another Star Wars show. So, it's great. We have this ever-growing satellite Star Wars episodes. And for those of you out there wondering, why does a Batman show, a Batman site do Star Wars shows? I just say, hey, you know what? You can get a chicken sandwich at Burger King. So, back off. But no, we do these for fun, and we appreciate you guys embracing them. And if you don't know this already, we've done other shows that are not Batman related whatsoever. We had a Superman show, which is DC, obviously, but we had a Rocky franchise.
we had a Rocky show. It was good.
The Rocky show was one of my favorites that we've ever done, and we have a lot of cool things lined up. We're going to do some Matrix and Back to the Future, and who knows what else. Maybe we'll get around to that Smokey and the Bandit
nice.
one day too. But all right, guys. So let's talk a little Star Wars. So there's been a lot going on these last couple of weeks. The Last Jedi Blu-ray was dropped, which has a lot of really cool stuff in it. It has deleted scenes, audio commentary, and what I consider to be a gorgeous documentary. The director and the Jedi, I love it. But in addition to the Blu-ray, we just got a cinematic solo, a Star Wars story trailer, a brand new one. We'll get to that because we certainly can't not talk about it. So, but let's start off with this Last Jedi Blu-ray. Ricky Church, let's start with you as the guest of honor, man. What are your overall thoughts on the Blu-ray? What was some of your favorite things about it?
I love the Blu-ray. The 4K looks amazing. I watched it on my parents' newly minted 4K, and it's a great transfer. And then the bonus features, there's such a wealth of them. It's it's very comprehensive, and one of my favorite behind-the-scenes looks at movies on the Blu-ray set in, one of my favorites ever, and just one of the best that's been released in a long time. So I really loved all the features on the set. The documentary you've mentioned is great, and his audio commentary is also really well done and pleasure to listen to.
Yeah, the thing I love about the Blu-ray so much too is it just shows my just Ryan Johnson's passion for the franchise. There's obviously a lot of online pushback on this film, and people, have their own opinions of it and what have you. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I personally love this film, and I really love him. I just think he's so passionate. Did you guys get into the Director and Jedi documentary and see some of the stuff that, like, there's this one moment where, that great scene between Luke and Leia at the end where he kisses her on the forehead. It's their only scene together, but it's so wonderful. It shows that scene being filmed, and then he steps away from her. Mark Hamill does after the scene is shot, and Carrie Fisher's having a moment, not as Leia, just as an actress coming down from something that was very emotional, and Ryan comes over to her and comforts her and everything. Just that process of the director and the actors, and just obviously it being Carrie tugs at your heartstrings. Probably my single favorite moment of that whole Blu-ray. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
Yeah, towards the end, yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of moments like that in that documentary. Just, and that's what I like about it. It really kind of, if the episode 7, The Force Awakens was surrounded by mystery and nostalgia and everything, this The Last Jedi, I think, has a lot of heart and thought and soul into it. And that's something that I'm just like really able to kind of see in this documentary specifically. You can see a lot of the performances of the actors just really seem like they're putting their all into this thing. And you can tell that Ryan Johnson really cares, about the film that he made and the performances he got. And, a scene like that with between Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, that's one of the best scenes in the film.
That scene in general, just seeing it on film, what it means for both the franchise, because, at that point in the story, Hans passed away in the story, but, now we don't have Carrie Fisher in real life. And that scene in particular is just so powerful and emotional on so many levels, both as a film and both that in these people's personal lives and the personal collective of fans watching it and seeing it shot on film in that documentary. That just opened it up to a whole nother kind of viewpoint for me about the passion of these actors and the filmmaker who wrote it and directed it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really liked too is that they were able to get some footage talking to her about the process and about Ryan and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was hilarious. It was great.
It's so funny. What do I think of Ryan? I think he's an asshole. I mean, just totally Carrie Fisher stuff, right? So such good, just goodness. But what else? I mean, there's so much stuff on this Blu-ray, guys. I mean,
the Yoda stuff. The Yoda stuff was great.
The Yoda stuff is awesome.
Whenever they got into that, just seeing Mark Hamill walk into that soundstage and see, or wherever they were shooting it, and see Frank Oz and get to talk to him and see what they're up to, and then just talking up to and having them talk to Frank Oz about it and seeing what they did with the special effects part of it, having Yoda be a puppet again instead of CG, like how that was a deliberate choice. Not just because they wanted it to be a puppet, but because, Luke didn't meet a CG version of Yoda in the films that he was in before. He met the puppet Yoda, and that's the old Yoda. And that made sense to me. And just seeing the care that they took into recreating Yoda, where they got the original molds and had people resculpt it from scratch, but to make it match the original molds as much as they possibly could as a complete, replica. It was just really fascinating to see all of that kind of work for something like that into the film. It just makes it that much more special. Yeah, absolutely does. Hey, Ricky, what did you think when Frank Oz said that we had to do the puppet Yoda because that was the Yoda that Luke remembered, and that therefore if it was the CGI Yoda, I guess from the prequels he's referring to, obviously, that Luke wouldn't know that he was Yoda. I find that a little odd to me. Yoda is just Yoda. But I well, just imagine that though. Imagine if it was CG. Like, do you think, would you have not missed a beat, or would you have thought, huh? There's something off about this.
I don't know. I think about there's a great scene in Revenge of the Sith with Yoda and Anakin, and he's talking to Anakin, and I just see Yoda. I don't. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they don't span. There wasn't a movie before where he's talking to, or that Anakin is talking to the puppet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's two different franchises.
Yeah, I can. I can.
One franchise.
Or two different series of films set apart. You know.
Yeah, because he was so
prequel franchise, sequel franchise,
different kind of era. Yeah,
eras. Yeah.
I think it was a great choice to bring the puppet back. I can kind of see where Frank Oz is coming from with like, it would look. And I think like the puppet obviously worked because Luke's or Mark Hamill's reaction to seeing the puppet for the first time, like he got very emotional in that behind the scenes footage. So I think it was the right choice to bring the puppet back for sure.
Yeah. And what's cool is like they must have had, watching this documentary, they must have had cameras on everything that was happening all the time or something, because they captured so many kinds of on-set decision-making type stuff. Like in the film, in that the end of that Yoda scene where the tree gets struck by lightning and catches on fire, Yoda just kind of like closes his eyes and points upwards or whatever. And they showed that decision happen on set in the documentary where they're like, oh, in the script, he just kind of looks up, but what if we try with just a finger pointing up, and you see them try that out and see the puppeteers actually do that just to try it. And it's great because you can see all the emotion just kind of work.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, look, the Yoda stuff stands out to me. But you know what was a really cool documentary also, or I don't know, documentary, whatever you want to call it, a vignette, is the balance of the Force. Like, I don't want to take anything.
Oh, that was cool.
Oh my gosh. Like that right there to me was, because I love Rian Johnson's angle on like some of my favorite scenes in The Last Jedi, which really are some of my favorite scenes in the franchise, is the stuff with Rey and Kylo when they're not, they're what someone I think on Collider referred to as Force Skyping, which I think is pretty funny. And, but those moments, and Ryan was saying he really wanted to find a way for them to have a relationship in this film, but obviously they weren't going to be anywhere near one another physically for the majority of it. And it was so brilliant the way he was able to utilize the Force and to find a way to bring them together. I thought it was just a very interesting choice, and how he said he didn't want to use any like gimmicks or anything. He just wanted it to be very real and intimate. And I thought,
just with subtle camera tricks, because that's something else that comes across, is that he's a fan of just filmmaking in general, and he likes just film techniques, and he uses all those simple blocking techniques to kind of get that idea across. And the film itself, like there's so many different ways the Force gets explored in this film. So I thought that feature is actually a pretty, it's not that long, but there's a lot of cool, dense information in it. That's fun to watch.
No, absolutely. And that's the perfect way to say it. It's just all of it's fun to watch. If you love Star Wars, it's fun to watch. If you love The Last Jedi specifically, it's fun to watch. If you love just the magic of movie making, it's fun to watch. It's so great. What about what else, Rick? Anything that stands out? I mean, there was a lot of other things too. There was some really cool stuff about just the fighting in the film in terms of the space fights and the space battles. That's a cool thing to watch. There was a thing about Snoke. All of that was awesome stuff. But I think I think the director and the Jedi and the balance of the Force are my two favorites. One
of the things, actually, now that you bring up the balance of the Force, one of the things I really like about that is how Rian Johnson explains his the emphasis on bringing the Force back to like the mystical kind of side of it, because he mentions like, it's not about, kind of like what Ray says, it's not just about lifting rocks or pushing people, because like a whole generation of fans grew up with the prequel era where the Jedis were basically like superheroes, where they could do anything in the movies and in the Clone Wars series and now Rebels and stuff. So now the movies have shifted more back to the original trilogy where the Force was all about like the mysticism of it and connecting with people. And I really liked those points that he brought up in that feature.
Yeah, like they're just getting they're getting away from the midichlorians and the technical aspects, and more of the stuff that's the clues and hints that are in the actual original trilogy of binds things and together and it's living, all that stuff.
It's funny that you bring up midichlorians though, because I do think that Ryan honored that in his film. I honestly do, because
nothing like gets cast aside. They just kind of do it elegantly.
Well, but I think this is kind of almost on the nose. He's talking about Kylo to Rey, and he's like, he had that mighty Skywalker blood, like blood. Bloodline, interesting. What is blood?
Yeah, well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? To me, that's kind of what I picked up at. But anyway, we can go, there's so many pockets and avenues we can drive down and do this all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say one final point about the documentary itself, that portion. Just overall, the thing that I just enjoyed the most was seeing like two things. Was just Mark Hamill in general, and seeing his relationship and push and pull with Rian Johnson about the film and about his role in it and stuff, and how blunt he was with, I really don't like anything you're doing with me, with the character or whatever, but I'm going to trust you with this. And then he kicks ass and does his all, and he pours his heart and soul into like realizing that vision.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really interesting look at just the creative process and committing yourself to something and doing your best to kind of realize that, because they all care about Star Wars and they all want to make it good. And I just thought that was just a fascinating thing to watch. And you can see that, up front when Marcus Hamill is doing that flashback scene where he's just on his, hands and knees with the sand on R2-D2 with the Jedi Temple is burning. Like you can see he had to get to kind of a place where he could act that, and just to see kind of Rian Johnson go up to him and kind of let him have a moment afterwards. That kind of stuff is pretty powerful, along with the scene from the end of the film we were talking about earlier. So.
Dude, let me tell you something. We were talking a lot off mic earlier about a lot of the stuff. But what's funny is that the moment where he's sitting and he's basically dying,
of course.
That moment is some powerhouse acting by Hamill. But I love I love in the documentary where it's showing that, and then you're seeing the close up of Mark and whatnot, and then he cuts over to Ryan. He has this little microphone. He's like, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and that he feels it. And that, listen, we can debate all day long. There's nothing wrong if you don't like The Last Jedi. If you don't like the way Luke was handled, you're entitled to that opinion. And that's great. I still welcome friendly debates about it, because I look at this and say, man, it's so crazy. I grew up with this character too. Luke was my hero. But this is so Luke. Everything about it is Luke. Everything. And, Mark Hamill saying to Rian Johnson, I fundamentally disagree with everything you were doing to my character, whatever. You know what, guys? Sometimes that's part of the creative process between an actor and a director.
And he still brought his A game.
Yes, that's part of it. You don't have to like everything. Like, that's not it's not written for you. You have a job to do to bring it, and you have to find why that makes sense. And it does. It does on every imaginable level. And, I made a joke on Twitter one day. I was like, I don't know why everybody has an issue with him in a brief moment just contemplating maybe killing his nephew, because he would, he would like stop mass murder if he did, but then it was a millisecond. That's not why he went in there.
Yeah.
But my thing was like, hey man, this is still the offspring of freaking Anakin. Like, if Luke suddenly just started slaughtering the younglings, I might have cynically cheered in the audience going, yeah, get him, Anakin offspring.
And it's not like Luke hasn't been tempted before, like with a hint of it in Empire, and then when he goes full out anger in Return of the Jedi at the end there before he tosses the lightsaber away. So it's
funny.
not
It's
really
like
anything new,
right?
Yeah,
it's really not.
I mean, there's a whole prequel trilogy wrapped around the fact that Anakin Skywalker turns to the dark side. You know, it's like, and Luke can't be spared the one moment where he kind of fails in that, but doesn't cross the line. Like, it's kind of ludicrous when you really think about it.
We can debate.
Let's
debate that. Scene. We can debate the scene all day long. Just don't tell me he went in there to kill his nephew, because if you say that, I'm sorry, you missed the point. That's not why he went in there.
Yep. Okay? Exactly.
That's not why he went in there. All right, we can and listen. I don't think we're even off base here talking about the movie, because one of the questions I wanted to ask too, guys, is. And I want to actually talk about deleted scenes too for a second. And but did watching it at home, did this change or did this move the needle for you guys at all in terms of where it's placed for you in your heart, how you feel about this film, how you perceive it? Ricky, do you like it more? Do you like it less? Or you are where you are after seeing it the last time in the theater? Where are you at with it?
I think I like it more. Like the first time I saw it, I loved it immediately. Like, it did something that I didn't think Star Wars could do to me anymore. It surprised the heck out of me, just with all of the like twists and turns Johnson does. And I ended up just not just loving it for that, but for like everything else the movie did. But then getting it on the Blu-ray and being able to, see the director in the Jedi documentary and see all the other behind-the-scenes features, I began to like it more, just on a like deeper appreciation for it. Because like my background is, like I've worked on a lot of like film and TV sets in the last like few years, so I've gotten to see some behind-the-scenes stuff and like get like so I have a appreciation for everybody behind the camera who does these things. So seeing all the stuff that they did, like just from planning the schedule to like, okay, we're going to shoot here for 3 days. We're going to shoot here. We only have 2 days on the island. And then all the sets that they had to build.
Like, to airlift in the sea cow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's insane the amount of stuff they did on this movie. So yeah, I definitely liked it more from a technical perspective.
Sure. I mean, listen, Star Wars has never failed us from a technical perspective, right?
Yeah, that's the driving thing from the start. Yeah,
sure. But at the end of the day, it's about the story. Was it compelling? Did it move you? Were you invested in the characters? And look, there's complaints I have about this film. There's not a perfect Star Wars movie to me except for the original two. A New Hope is perfect. You can't dissect A New Hope. It is
no, I mean you can, and when you do, you find a pitch perfect film from beginning to end, because like the whole like hero's journey path that it follows, like that's why people still dissect it, because it is such a good example of storytelling tropes and structure,
Absolutely. It's a perfect movie. And then The Empire Strikes Back is a perfect sequel. But there hasn't been
the perfect sequel.
It's a perfect sequel. It's also a perfect movie. But you know what? There hasn't been a perfect Star Wars movie since then. Return of the Jedi certainly was not. The Phantom Menace certainly was not. And don't get me wrong, I'll defend the Phantom Menace. I enjoy the Phantom Menace, but it has a lot of problems.
We'll defend Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. I like Attack of the Clones better than.
I don't hate it
than most. I think it's the most underrated film of the franchise in terms of fandom. But I mean, hell, I don't know. Maybe I need to say that about The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
But here's the difference with The Last Jedi is that it's hard because critics loved it. Critics hated Attack of the Clones, and so there's that aspect of it. Plus, the fandom part is hard because we're also living in this hyper age of internet and everybody's got an opinion online, and you can be an anonymous troll, and you can get on Rotten Tomatoes and you can spam it with half-star reviews and call it feminist agendas and political correctness. And, I mean, that's what happened with that film.
It sounds funny when you say it, but then it's actually true. And it's so funny.
Go to Rotten Tomatoes and look at some of those reviews. There are a lot of reviews that are 2 stars. That's not friendly. That's horrible. That are like those are just upset fans. And you know what?
Yeah,
You gotta respect
91% fresh, tomato meter 47%.
About
but how many of those go through and read? And
I know.
If we could take out all the like, I don't know, it's like alt-right. I don't know what it is. But it's like pissed off that there's women in it.
Yeah.
And the Chinese girl kissing the black dude. I mean, it's horrible.
I just want to say about like maybe a week or 2 weeks after the movie came out, I wrote an article on Flickering Myth about like kind of in defense about the movie and like why I like the themes that it presented of the Force and of failure and this and that. I have never gotten as many comments on an article as I did on that one, and largely negative ones. And like I replied to a few of them just cause. But then eventually I was like, okay, nope, I'm gonna stop because these guys are just trolling. And like I got one that's like, oh, this guy's just afraid of the Me Too movement. And it's like, what the hell? It's
funny and that's when an article like that can kind of just appropriate like any and every comment, just kind of feeds into it, whether you intended it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And again, I want to make sure I'm clear here. I'm not saying that there's not a legitimate backlash on this film. There are fans that do not like this movie, and they are not hateful people. And they're fans, and they just don't like it, and that's a problem.
Yeah, there's 50 different categories that this can go into.
I'm talking about a very specific category, which unfortunately spammed the hell out of Rotten Tomatoes. Now, with that said, listen, there's nothing new about toxic behavior with fandom in Star Wars. Nothing. This goes back to really, I mean, I guess you could really go back to Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks. I was 9 when they came out, so I don't know.
My dad still hates that. He goes back and he's like, he'll go back and rewatch Star Wars movies, and he doesn't remember the titles. He just kind of asks me, which one was the one with this in it or that in it? Which one was Jar Jar? I don't want to see that one. And which one's with the one with them damn little bears? I don't like that one. Which one's the good one? Like it's kind of funny that some of that stuff still sticks with people this many years.
And if you think that The Last Jedi had a backlash because there's this online faction to it, listen, I was a year out of college when The Phantom Menace came out. I was a grown man, and people were disgusted.
I can't imagine.
I remember going to see that in the theater, and I wanted to throw my boot through the screen. I don't even wear boots. Now, that film's grown up.
You wear sandals. You just flip-flop a sandal through the screen.
That movie, I do. That movie has grown on me over the years, and I appreciate it very much for what it is. And there's a lot of things I love about it. But at the time, you're talking about a divisive film. There wasn't a more divisive film than The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Because it was the first of the new films, and everybody watched it going, what is this? This doesn't even look like Star Wars.
It had like an impossible thing to overcome, and then it's still kind of and then it did its own thing.
George Lucas made a kid movie, and quite frankly, if it wasn't for the Darth Maul stuff, that movie would have been garbage.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the way that Phantom Menace was constructed, I don't think The Force Awakens would have been constructed the way it was. Because that's like the complete antithesis of that, how that like works, how that movie is made and constructed, and brings out nostalgic feelings, but doesn't go too far with the new stuff and kind of pleases everybody. And then they kind of do some new interesting things in The Last Jedi, and of course that's where people start to have issues. So it's kind of an interesting, cadence to look at.
I view Phantom Menace as like an extended prologue to Star Wars, because that's how Palpatine gets in power and everything. So it's like, and it's all set up for episodes 2 and 3. So it's like, it is very much an extended prologue, and almost like minus Anakin's introduction and
almost unnecessary.
Obi-Wan becoming a Jedi Knight at the end. It's like removed a bit from the events of episodes 2 and 3. No.
Right. Listen, we don't need 45 minutes of Gungans fighting droids in the most literally the most sterile sequence in any Star Wars movie, and then juxtapose that with Jar Jar shenanigans. But
then again, I think that's part of the whole purpose of that, and that's the thing that you don't realize until years later, where it's like, well, yeah, people fighting robots is kind of a word that's manufactured just to kind of exist. The same, and then you see that repeated on a much larger scale with the Clone Wars and it's in Palpatine's Rise of Power. I mean, it's all kind of there. No, those ideas are there, but just the way it's executed isn't really the best.
And at the end of the day, I still really like the Phantom Menace.
Sure.
I do. I really do. Sure. But I'm just making a larger point about Star Wars fandom. So we got off track there a little bit. Let's bring it back to the last.
It's good. Though.
Let's get. Yeah. Well, we're talking Star Wars. So we didn't start talking shoes. Let's start or weather or how to make gravy or one of the million other things that we've done. But Ricky, what about the deleted scenes? Let me just say this up front. I'm not a big deleted scene guy, and I'll put it to you like this. I can't really think of a whole lot of DVDs, Blu-rays, what have you, that I've watched the deleted scenes and gone, why did they not put that scene in the movie? There's not a whole lot that stand out to me for that. I typically always look and say, yeah, I see why they took that one out. That doesn't work. That would have been weird pacing. It just didn't fit in or whatever. And I feel kind of the same way about these. There's some good moments. I love this. I love all the stuff with Luke and Rey anyway. So seeing some of that was great. But there's not one scene where I said, why did Ryan take that out? What about you? Was there anything that jumped out on the deleted scenes?
The only scene that I might have wanted in is Luke's private moment to mourn for Han, but even later that would feel a bit redundant when he visits the Falcon and takes Han's dice and has his quiet moment before R2 comes back on. So aside from that, none of the deleted scenes jumped out at me being I wish they were back in the movie. Even Phasma's scene, as good as that is, to see her.
That's kind of an alternate scene, right?
Yeah. It's I prefer the scene that they ultimately put in the movie than the one that they cut. So there's nothing.
I do as well. In fact, I think it kind of sucks. Honestly.
Yeah. So
I think that's part of the point too. Is a lot of those scenes were very obviously not in their finished forms. That and the extended Canto Bight chase sequence. That scene is obviously way too long. They threw every gag in the book. It's almost like its own little separate, gag-filled thing where they just threw everything in it. But what's cool about that is that they acknowledge that up front and say, yeah, we just threw everything in here, but we're doing its unfinished form just because we want you, the fans, to have more content to look at. And Ryan Johnson puts commentary on top of all this stuff too. So it's again another very interesting look into the filmmaking process. And a lot of those scenes are deleted or changed or made alternate for a reason. And you just kind of get to see why. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to kind of look at.
Absolutely. And that's just it. It's a fun thing. If you like, and I said this earlier, if you like Star Wars, you're going to love this documentary. If you like filmmaking, you're going to love this documentary. If you hate The Last Jedi, you may hate this documentary.
If you didn't want more Canto Bight chase sequence, then this might not be for you.
I can't even finish watching that deleted scene. I'm bored enough as it is with this.
It's half a whole. It's 15 minutes long or something. It's super long.
Yeah,
I actually
goes on way too long.
I like most of the Canto Bight stuff anyway. I think it's very stylized. I think it has a prequel aesthetic. I think that was intentional. But when they're riding around on the space horses and going up cliffs and Finn and Rose are just hanging on, that stuff's that's a bit much. And,
when they go through the spa and you see a bunch of naked aliens, it's do you really? It
was 10 scenes of the pre-setup, something's gonna happen, and then they crash through, and then you see the aftermath, and then you repeat that a bunch. So you know what? That's if I was directing a movie, I would do that too. I would do 10 setups and see which ones land the best, and then just cut everything out. Which is probably what they intended all along.
Yeah.
Well, and the first thing that jumps in my mind, and some of those sequences, particularly the one you guys are referring to, the spa scene, I'm like, man, Ryan Johnson must really love the Return of the Jedi Special Edition, because that, you know what I mean? That's what this is. This is
with all the extra creatures
in Jabba's lair, and the band starts playing, and it's the same creatures getting a spa. All right. Well, so before we transition to Solo trailer, any final thoughts on on the Last Jedi Blu-ray. I mean, I'll just personally say I love this film. I love it even more. I think that it's beautiful. I will defend everything Rian Johnson did in that film, except for milking the space cow. That scene sucks. But I think that this is a great Blu-ray. I think it's worth the money to buy it to see these features. I think it's really well done. Everybody disagree or agree or?
No, I completely agree. And just like we've said, I think the takeaway points is just you can really tell that Rian Johnson loves Star Wars and put a lot of extra effort into putting stuff in the Blu-ray that we actually didn't really get too much of in The Force Awakens, at least. Like, we do get the full commentary for both the film and for the deleted scenes, which is kind of an uncommon thing. And the documentary is great. And if you have, I guess, the Movies Anywhere version, there is also a isolated score version of the film you can watch.
The music only.
What is the John Williams only music track over the film, and it's a spectacular way to watch the film, and not a lot of movies get that, and this one absolutely deserves it. So I think that's kind of the extra mile kind of stuff that they tried to put into this release that I think is very commendable.
You know, one of the things I want to say here, also because I'm a huge, huge fan of Revenge of the Sith. It's one of my favorite films in the franchise, period. And I like the audio commentary at the end of The Last Jedi on, what's the salt planet's name? Crate, right?
Crate,
yeah.
Yep.
Crate.
When Kylo is marching with his stormtroopers, this is after Luke disappears and does that badass trick, and after the Resistance was able to escape. But he's marching with his stormtroopers, right? And I remember seeing it in the theater for the first time, and I was watching it going, man, that's very reminiscent to me of Anakin marching with his stormtroopers going into a bloodbath that is also known as Order 66. And in the audio commentary, Rian Johnson says, the scene right here, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says, this scene right here, very much a throwback to Episode 3 and one of George's best shots he ever did with Anakin marching with his stormtroopers or something along those lines. I'm like, yes! Not only was I hoping that was right, like for him to compliment it the way he does. Such a beautiful shot, one of George's best. However he says it, just and very much specifically stated that's what that was. And I'm like, man, you know what? Considering those two films are tied for third place for me, that just kind of tugged at my heartstrings. All right, so let's talk about this new Solo trailer. Ricky, real fast, just what have your expectations been for this film so far, and has that changed since you've seen this new trailer? Let's set it up that way.
All right. My expectations pre-trailer was, I guess I was, I don't know.
Wait, when you say pre-trailer, you mean pre this trailer or any trailer?
Yeah. Pre this trailer. Okay. Was, I guess, cautiously optimistic. Like, I wasn't too interested. Like, Han Solo is one of my favorite characters from Star Wars, but I wasn't really too interested in the origin story, I guess, of him or how he got the Falcon. And we've kind of talked about this before. I would have much preferred a Obi-Wan movie with Ewan McGregor than, a young Han Solo movie. But after all the drama behind the scenes and Ron Howard coming on board, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And then the first trailer got me much more interested, but like still not quite there. And then this new one now has really impressed me. Like, it looks, the visuals in it look great, and looks like it's got some nice set pieces. Like the moving train bit looks pretty cool. Yeah. I'm still a little unsure of I don't know how to pronounce this.
Alden Ehrenreich?
Alden Ehrenreich, yes.
Yeah.
I'm still a little unsure about him, but everybody else, like, I'm down for Donald Glover as Lando. Give him a Solo movie after this. He's already got it, I think. But so that's my opinion on it. I'm kind of excited for it now.
Man, listen, that Glover that dude is slick. I mean, he is just so handsome and cool and charming. And I don't know, have you guys ever seen him in an interview? That is
He's the best.
That dude is
Oh, yeah.
he's sharp and he's funny, and you know what? And he just embodies. I look at when I see him, I'm like, yep, there's Lando. I don't even Billy D. I don't even care. But with this kid, you're going, is that Han? And for the first time in this trailer, I've looked at him and said, I just see Han. Do I see the charisma and the magic of Harrison Ford? No, I don't think you can. Right?
Yeah,
but he's not that Han Solo yet. When I think that's what's
exactly.
That's
interesting about this to me.
Yeah, elaborate on that, please. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, this trailer actually specifically kind of touches on that. I always wanted to do this. I've been looking for a shot like this. And then some of the characters say, like, if you get into this life, you'll never be the same. And stuff like that just makes me think you're going to see certain things happen to him that will probably make him the Han Solo that we want. And when you have something like that, I think it can kind of sell that part of it. And then when you do have mainstay characters like Chewbacca and like, Lando being Lando, which we're already super down with, I think surrounding those characters that are a little bit more familiar at places where they start in the film around this Han Solo, I think that's just going to kind of bolster the story and the performance and everything. So I think that's something that we will have to see the final film to judge, but that's the kind of vibe I'm getting from this trailer, is that it is his origin story. And, Batman is not Batman until he goes through the things that he goes through first. So if the same thing goes for Han Solo, I think this movie could be kind of a successful, narrative.
I think so too, and I think that if you, like for me, I watched this trailer and I said, I just need to see Han. I need to see him. I don't need to see an impression of Harrison Ford. F that. I need to see him.
Well, and that's the thing. I saw enough little glimmers in this trailer that I did kind of see that. Some parts didn't feel that way, but some parts did. But I think that kind of could speak, hopefully, to the points I just talked about. So I'm pretty hopeful.
Well, and this actor too, I forget his name. I think he's from Iceland. Where's he from? I don't know. The guy that plays Chewbacca now, Janoon.
Oh yeah.
Hunis Satamuto.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I've seen him in interviews, and that guy is about as cool as they come too. He's awesome. But this is his now third film to play Chewie. And,
right.
And Chewie is his own character. It's not like you can just put someone in a costume. It's mannerisms, it's movements. And unfortunately, he was able to work with Peter Mayhew on Episode 7, and they were...
right.
Peter Mayhew...
kind of passed the baton, and that's great.
Yeah, all the close-up shots is actually Peter Mayhew in that film, which is cool.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah, no, I forgot about that.
And The Force Awakens, all the stuff that if he's sitting down in the Falcon, or like there's that scene where... like the lady's taking care of him, and she's like, "Oh, I bet that hurt." That's Peter Mayhew. But he was not in Last Jedi. He's retired, and then obviously he's not going to be in this. But I look at Chewie in these previews, and I'm like, gosh, that is freaking Chewie, man. He's got it now. He's got it, and that helps elevate. Is that to have his Chewie so perfectly embodied by another actor is crucial to that dynamic. And that scene where they're standing there and he's like, so what do you think? He's like, oh, well, what do you know? I'm just like, that's it. That's Han and Chewie. Like that is Han and Chewie, period, full stop, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That's Han and Chewie. And I like there's some people that are saying that Disney Lucasfilm is covering him up and they don't, they're not putting him front and center. I'm like, they're not? Like,
this whole trailer is about him.
The whole trailer's about him, and he delivered several great lines. And I like you're how old? 180? You look great. Punch it. I'm like, it gives me goosebumps.
And that's the thing too. It's in that like a lot of people that are asking, why are we going to? Who wants to see a movie about Han Solo and stuff? They are marketing it as more than that too. It's like, well, it's also Han Solo, but it's also got a story behind it with these other characters, and they're forming a crew. And it's trying to get this trailer specifically is trying to get you a little bit more invested into this overall story itself as well. And I think that's just like part of it.
I think this movie is probably going to be the trailer kind of sets up as like one heist, but I think it's going to be maybe like a series heists, which will be pretty cool to see, I think. And to see like Han and Chewie grow into like the smuggler roles with Lando and like the other people on their team.
No, I think you know what, you may be right about that. I think most importantly, I think we're going to see that Han at that stage in his life become the Han that we see in A New Hope, and and I think that's what this film has to accomplish. I mean, look, let's face it. I mean, you have Larry Kasdan, and his son wrote it. One of the greatest Star Wars writers, right? He wrote Empire Strikes Back. You have Ron Howard at the helm. I mean, yeah, there was a director's change, but let's face it, you know that guy reshot the vast majority of this movie.
Oh yeah,
for sure, right? For sure. And
he knows a thing or two about making movies and making them fast.
He knows a thing or two about making movies, and that's what this film has to be. Like, there's going to be a narrative right now. I'll tell you guys, this is not going to be a $1 billion film, and people are going to say it's because of the Last Jedi backlash. I'm going to just get it on the record right now. That's going to happen, and to that,
of course it is.
To that, I say horseshit. This film is going to live and die on its own by itself. And at the end of the day, if it's a well-made film and it's fun, and this trailer, I don't know, this was like a space western to me. It looks fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Yeah,
it just looks fun. I mean, everything about it looks fun. I'm sitting there.
It's the space western smuggler version, sector of the Star Wars universe. Rogue One kind of touched on it a little bit, but it veered back, of course, back into the Imperial like war type part of it. And I think this one is just going to kind of veer off the other direction a little bit. It seems. Yeah. Although there is some Empire stuff in it, but it doesn't
show
go as close.
Yeah.
Show the seedy underworld of the galaxy.
Right. Well, yeah, and it has that kind of boots on the ground Rogue One feel to it. Right. Yeah. I actually heard somebody say that on Collider. Who was that? They said it was like boots on the ground feel of Rogue One. I thought, man, that's so well stated. I completely agree with that assessment. So look, is this kid going to be good? Are we going to watch this in 20 minutes in going, man, this dude sucks. That's not Han. Maybe, I don't know. But what I can say is this, is that I'm more convinced now that he's going to be just fine. And as long as he's just good, he doesn't have to hit it out of the park. He doesn't have to be even all that memorable. He just, you don't want to roll your eyes, and you don't want him to just tarnish Han. If he can just be good, and then around him is all this amazing things with story and Glover and Chewbacca and just all it's everything.
Boba Fett and Jabba the Hutt.
You're gonna have. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, Boba Fett and Jabba are in this freaking movie.
Yeah,
they're absolutely.
I'm also excited on the new droid character because Leet, I think its name is That seems like a pretty fun character. I'm down for that.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. It looks fun. I'm completely sold on it, and I'm looking for a good time. I hope this thing does 700, 800,000, or 800 million. Sorry, and I hope that it. No, Rick, it's not the money that costs to open a bar. It's box office. But anyway,
makes a couple bucks.
Yeah. But I hope it's around that 700 million mark, 800 million mark. And I hope that reviews are good. I don't really give a shit about Rotten Tomato audience score. I really don't. But I do care that the reviews are good. There's some goodwill and there's some good word of mouth. And I just hope it's a fun Star Wars movie. And I don't think this thing's not meant to like freaking change the world or anything. This is true fun escapism. And you know what? We might be surprised. This thing may be more nuanced than we think. And my guess is there's going to be a couple of things we walk away from this that I think Ron Howard and Kasdan and Kathleen Kennedy have a few tricks up their sleeve. I really do. I think we're going to walk away. We're going to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that X, Y, and Z," and then that ties into that thing he says in Jedi or whatever, right? I just think I think there's going to be stuff like that.
Jimmy Smits will come back again.
Hey, I'm down if he does, But Ricky, you mentioned earlier the Obi-Wan film, and listen, I will frickin' march the streets of Burbank if we don't get that movie. That has to happen, dude, and it has to be Ewan McGregor. They have to make that. That is uncalled for. If they don't.
That is the most no-brainer, obvious thing to do. But I think they all know that. I think they know that.
Well, and they've got Ewan, and listen, and he looks freaking amazing, and he's aging appropriately for that to play between 3 and 4. But in addition to that,
we have no clue what's coming after after that.
we don't know what's coming in.
Like nothing is actually announced. It's kind of like so much is like in the works and been announced, but we don't know like what any of that stuff actually is.
We don't
like
know.
All these people writing new movies and TV series and all that stuff. We have no clue what it actually is.
Absolutely not. And they're still in episode 9, and it's still around the corner. And I think that I'm hoping that JJ does something with Ewan McGregor. And here's the thing. Look. The most important line, this is my personal opinion, but the most important line in The Force Awakens is Ewan McGregor's Force Ghost talking to her and saying, these are your first steps. Now, you don't bring in Ewan McGregor for a voiceover in a Star Wars movie, and that's the end of it. And also speaking to the new lead character and telling her these are her first steps. And that whole flashback sequence in The Force Awakens where she finds Anakin's lightsaber and she's hearing all these voices and everything. If you listen, all that stuff, other than the Knights of Ren stuff, all of that is just stuff from the other films. You hear Yoda from Empire. You'll hear Palpatine.
You hear Luke and Vader, don't you?
Yeah. But Ewan McGregor coming in and recording a new line of dialogue.
Yeah.
That's significant. So maybe that's why we aren't getting an announcement yet of anything, because that will all come after episode 9, and it better. Look,
I'm very hopeful.
And I'm a very big defender of the prequels, and obviously I would love to have seen a Hayden Christensen Force Ghost. That's not going to happen now, by the way. That's toast. That had to be in episode 8, or it's toast. There's no way There's no way JJ is going to do that, because now you also have to have Luke's Force Ghost. So. But right. But you can certainly do a lot with Hayden, and you know what, Ricky? Hopefully we'll go see Solo here in a couple months, and we'll just say, man, what a great ride and a great fun.
Well, almost 1 month from now.
It's coming up pretty quick.
And then we'll put it on the back burner. I think this franchise needs a year and a half, guys. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It really probably needs some breathing room.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that the Solo did not get pushed to December, because now it's going to come out. It can maybe if it's fun and well made, people can have a good time, and then we'll have a year and a half to kind of let episode 9 kind of take the stage. I think that's good.
The hype will build itself again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, let's face it. There's going to be Star Wars Celebration in between here and then. There's going to be things announced. There'll be a lot of fun stuff with animation, comics, and then obviously they're going to announce some films. I will get a little concerned if they don't announce Obi-Wan at this celebration, though. Just because then all of a sudden you have to look at the calendar and say, well, when the hell would they do this movie? 2026? Then you probably consider it dead at that point, but it better not be. All right, so any final thoughts on the Solo trailer, guys? Is there, Brian, anything that what was your favorite moment in it?
I mean, like I said, just the whole thing as a whole, just kind of making me feel a bit more confident about the main narrative of the film, about it being Han Solo's origin story, and that is making me more excited to watch it than any single moment in the trailer. So that would be what I thought was cool.
Cool. Mine is that exchange with Han and Chewie, man. What do you know? I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool.
And that better be the take they keep in the film. And if it's not, if it's a different take, it better be.
Man, I bet there's so much stuff in these trailers that aren't not going to be in the final film.
Just wait for the Lord and Miller cut. Wait for fans demanding that.
Oh goodness! Referencing Zack Snyder cut. Deep cut there, Rick. Deep cut, buddy. All right, Ricky, what do you think, man?
Thank you.
Just one more final thing on the Solo trailer, man. Anything you want to just throw in there?
Just like I said earlier, I'm more optimistic. It does look like it's going to be a fun movie to sit down and watch. And my favorite moment is either that Han and Chewie moment you've mentioned, or Lando just being like, everything you've heard about me is true. So it's like, yeah, like it looks like it's just going to be like a fun ride. So
here's a little story too, real quick. I am a Cheers fanatic. I'm not kidding. I have the first 7 seasons on DVD. There's 11 seasons. I have Cheers trivia. I have a Cheers dartboard. I can talk to you. You can show me a picture of Ted Danson on set, and I can tell you what season it is by his hair and his clothes. I'm serious. And so many years ago, my wife and I were in San Francisco having dinner at a restaurant, and Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman came and sat right next to us. I'm not a starstruck person, but when I looked over and I saw her, I was like, "Oh, cool, Danny DeVito!" But his wife is here, Carla. Oh my god, I got starstruck. And so for me to have Woody in a Star Wars movie is like this pop culture mind fuck. It's just I can't put it into words how cool it is for me that a key cast member from Cheers is in a Star Wars movie. It's just awesome.
A Hunger Games fan? Oh.
Not really. Yeah, but not really. But yeah, I know you're going with that. And then you got Kelsey. You got Kelsey Grammer in the X-Men franchise, and
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, there's other moments and whatnot, but it's just. But Star Wars is different. Star Wars and Batman.
Sure.
Star Wars and Batman are different. So anyhow, all right.
I agree with that.
Listen, guys, I think this is a fun little Star Wars chat. I want to give a shout out to Zaki Hassan that was supposed to join us, and some stuff came up, and we just want you to know that we miss you, buddy. We wish you could have been on the show with us. And why don't we do some plugs and get the heck out of here, because it's 1:30 in the morning in Dallas, Texas right now, and we're recording. And Ryan, what time is it for you?
It's an hour ahead of that on the East Coast, so I'm tired.
And
same for me here.
And Ricky, what part of Canada are you in specifically?
Ontario.
You're in Ontario, and your time zone it's 2:30 for you right now as well, correct?
Yeah, it's same as Ryan's.
Okay, well, at least it's that. At least it's not like 5 in the morning.
But
anyway, so I just want everybody listening that we are here dedicated to bring you quality.
That's true.
Star Wars conversations at where it's almost and when bars in the States are calling last call right now.
It's all right, BOF After Dark yet again.
My second restaurant reference. That's my cue that I need to shut up and go to bed. All right, Ricky Church, give us a good plug, buddy.
All right. You guys can find me on Twitter at RichardChurch16. And as Rick mentioned earlier, I write for Flickering Myth, doing a lot of movie and TV reviews and just following entertainment news. So follow me there.
Please do. You're very good at what you do. I think you're an outstanding writer. Ryan Haas, what's up?
Thank you, guys.
Me, Ryan Haas. You can follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow the Robin Everyone Loves the Drake, Tim Drake podcast at ELTD Podcast. And like I mentioned earlier on the show, the Batman Podcast Network has its own Twitter handle now, so you can follow that, please, at BatPod Network.
Awesome. And even though I'm hosting this thing, I'm still going to plug because, that's how I roll. Today, Justin Koloski and I recorded episode 112 because this is 113 of the Batman on Film podcast. And we did a little 101 friendly debate about, I wrote an op-ed back in March, way back in March, called Batman Without Gods. And it was just my personal view on how I think Batman in live action cinema is better suited alone and not running around with, with aliens. It's just my personal opinion. Well, what's really great is that Justin and Ryan and two of our BOF guys, Peter Vera and Eric Holzman, put together a really great podcast, and it was their rebuttal to my op-ed. Well, then that got a lot of traction. So then, then Justin and I start shit talking one another on Twitter, and next thing you know, we do our own little thing today.
Rebuttal.
Yeah, and listen, it was so friendly and actually polite that I think we're building this up too much. That it's like,
well, no, that's like the Dark Knight Rises episode that me and Justin did, and we hashed out every problem and issue we've ever had, and it was nice and civil. And then we would go back on Twitter and start complaining about it again. So
yeah, we need to bring FJ back on when we really like throw punches, just like we do when we're online.
He does not hold back.
No, not on.
Yeah, but then we bring him on a show, and then he's great. Like he was on the Rises show, and he was great.
Well, he is great. Yeah. No. He is. I love FJ. I'm saying that you say great. I think he's confrontational on shows in a good way. I mean as a compliment. Anyway, if you're listening, buddy, we love you. Okay, moving on from that. And then I do want to plug my political show real quick. I don't want to offend anybody with politics. I'm certainly not trying to push an agenda here. But if you like Torre, if you know who he is, he's a big media personality. He used to be a host on BET. He had a show on MSNBC for 4 or 5 years called The Cycle, and he's been on Real Time with Bill Maher. God, he's been on Bill O'Reilly, Hardball with Chris Matthews. He's been Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, Al Sharpton, you name it. And he and I kind of just had this exchange on Twitter, and next thing I know, he's agreed to do a show, and we recorded an episode last week, and I'm really proud of it. And we talked about the current state of politics, and we talked a lot about music and what's going on with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and whatnot. Really cool stuff. If that interests you at all, Left Shew Politics, my conversation, or our conversation, I should say, me and Jeremy Grogley from Left Shew, with the one and only Torre. All right, so on that note, I'm going to zip it. We just want to thank you guys all very much for supporting Batman on Film, and really, really, guys, we appreciate the support of these satellite shows. These things could not have worked, and no one could have given a damn about them, and they would have been dead. And as it stands, they're popular, and we thank you guys very much. And we love that we get requests. Since we did the Rocky show and the Superman show and these Star Wars shows, now people are like, do a Back to the Future show.
Do Back to the Future.
Do Matrix. I'm like, yes, keep them coming. And we want to do all that. That's what, we're just pop culture fans. Batman is just, our religion. Everything else is, at least it's stuff that we...
Going in the vein of Lucasfilm and everything, Indiana Jones should be on that list.
Absolutely. Before I turned it over to announcer Rachel to take us out, first, follow me on Twitter at ShewRick. But I want to just make one quick prediction about Solo. You guys ready? Do you guys remember? Because you just reminded me of it. Do you guys remember when River Phoenix played a young
right? You think Harrison Ford's going to be in Solo?
No. Well, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he is, but that's not where I was going with this. But if you guys remember, there's a great scene when River Phoenix plays a young Indy, and the whip gets his chin at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Paul, what's his name? Paul, the bad guy in the film. He's a Ron Howard staple. He was in Da Vinci Code. Great actor.
Yeah.
He was in The Beautiful Mind.
Paul Bettany. That's
Paul
it.
Bettany.
Yeah.
I think that little gadget thing he has, he's swinging around. I think that hits Han in the chin and creates his scar, just like we saw with River Phoenix and Indiana Jones.
Cool.
Call it a hunch.
I could see it.
Call it a hunch. Okay, guys. There's no slick way to segue out of a chin comment. So thanks again for listening.
Throw your sandals out the screen.
Yeah, I am Rick Shew, Ryan Haas, Ricky Church. We are Batman on Film, and announcer Rachel will take us out.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, BatmanPodcastNetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.